Today, the last couple of days I've been having conversations and certain things keep coming up. Concept of helping the poor. You have some people out here rolling around pandering, acting like they're helping, but are they really? Here's a sandwich, the cameras come out, and stuff like that. There are people out there that really need help and are deserving of it. But what exactly does helping the poor mean? What exactly does helping the poor mean, and who should be doing so? Right? A lot of times, based on where we are, we point the finger at government. If you're a Jamaican, if you're a member of the diaspora or whatever, you question a lot how little the government does. If you work within the government, then you celebrate how much they do, So they'll celebrate how much they do. The people outside, there's no witnesses, right? No testimonials, right? But at the end of the day, especially for a nation like Jamaica, how much can government really do? How much resources do they have? And when helping people and helping the poor and doing all the things that they do, right? How many people really are going to get affected, right? Because here's the thing about helping. You help the world except one man. As far as he's concerned, you haven't helped, right? People getting help, but the persons who aren't, and again, nobody, no entity, no institution can reach everybody. But if you're helping folks, that person who the help is not reaching, as far as they're concerned, are you really doing it? And then again, we talk about the government and all that stuff. But we know how things go when it comes to government, how slow, how short-reaching it can be. But within every community, city, parish, especially in Jamaica and stuff like that, there's a whole bunch of private sector organizations that's doing really, really well. And some people in conversation were saying they should be made to assist. To some degree, that slides on the rules of communism, right? What people try to avoid, right? Forcing anyone to do anything. But it means you can't put pressure on, you can't encourage, you can't incentivize, you can't, there's means and ways to do what you do. But again, what exactly does it mean to help the poor? Right? Conversation coming up. But in the meantime, between time, drop some tunes for y'all. All right, let's do this. Ladies and gentlemen, it's yours truly, G. Cole, Raps and Kush, Shell it out a whole nine. Let me tell you something, man. Survive. Dropping some joints for y'all. Again, helping the poor, man. What exactly does that mean? Have to drop some tunes. You don't know. We have things to talk about. We got to drop some joints before we get in. Having this conversation, and it kind of triggered because of other conversations with folks, like, what do we do, Got some charitable events that we're a part of, and what up, Paul? Hey, Maclita, how you doing? And we help out as much as you can, but the conversation we were having was regarding housing, building housing for the poor. Barbados representing my UK fam, and sometimes, in our most optimistic tone and wanting the best and so forth, we seek that out, and we want to see help go to those in need. But we're a culture that looks at the fruit and not the root a lot, right? So as the conversation was going on and we're talking about, man, can we rely on the government? And we're members of the diaspora, so we're talking a lot about Jamaica here and other Caribbean nations. Like, can we rely on the government? Can we really rely on them? Are they doing enough? Do they ever? Probably not. But a lot of times we also can't see what they do. And in many cases, like I said earlier, if you help 1 million people, but you can't help two. The two that you don't help, they just know they weren't helped. They don't know about the million that you did. So that's why I'm not quick to pass judgment publicly. You know what I mean? I'll pass it in my mind. Hell yeah. You know what I mean? But I will say this. As we're having a conversation talking about what can be done, and people speak a lot on the government and whatnot. If you think about it a lot, the private sector gets away scotch free. That's your community. That's the people who empower you and in most cases enrich you, make you wealthy, all that stuff. And I'm not saying that it's an obligation, but the private sector in places like Jamaica, because the thing about Jamaica is there is poverty, but there's a lot of wealth too. Don't get it twisted. There's a lot of wealth. So as we put all the pressure on, and as we always appeal to the government, which guess what? That's what you're supposed to do. Those are your leaders. Those are your people that you put in places to do good and to take care of the nation. So in all honesty, rightfully so, you can reach out to them people. They have a track record of failing, but you can reach out to them. However, is there a responsibility, any onus, anything at all that we should be holding the private sector, Wagwan Lawrence, accountable? The answer, one cook full basket, we can all chip in, of course. Definitely. Large up yourself, Lawrence. Does the private sector owe any responsibility? Right? Again, I don't like to use words like obligation. I don't even like to use terms like owe, because the only person that owes you anything are your leaders and your publicly elected officials that you elect to do what they do. So again, not to vindicate the government or ask you to take your proverbial foot off their neck. Nah, that's not what we're saying at all. I'm just saying we've already established that we are not pleased and we're always disappointed by what the government does and stuff like that. And again, having a conversation earlier, like I'd mentioned, we have to say it's not that they're not doing anything. It's not getting out as fast, and it's not getting to where you can see it and you can feel it and you can, benefit from it fast enough, if at all. So as far as you're concerned, there is no help, no assistance from the government. But at another place, there might be some going on, and who knows the politics that's behind that too. Sometimes the resources and the help go in the direction where, the affiliates lie, right? But that's a whole different convo. But when we talk about helping the poor, what exactly does that mean? It's a term we use a lot, but what exactly does it mean? How do you help the poor? Do you provide food for the poor every day? And if so, how do you afford to do that? Is it a permanent thing? If somebody is in a certain financial position and you're helping the poor, is that a permanent place that they will be at? Is that a permanent thing that you will be doing? If you're feeding a family who are of low income, if potentially no income, and you're helping to provide for them, is that a permanent thing? What does it mean to help the poor? Does it mean to adopt and to continuously provide for? Right? Most people, even those people who help a lot from regular middle class incomes, don't get it twisted. They're a paycheck or two from joining you right there, right? In a decent position. But should they lose their income and not find a job and resources, then a couple months they are also going to be. So the question again lies in helping the poor. What exactly does that mean? What exactly does that mean? And whose responsibility is it? Now, we were having a conversation about homes. You know, you have a lot of poor folks that you hear from time to time about government building homes and whatever the case may be, right? But let's think about all the ghettos that is in Jamaica and across the globe. In the US, we talk about the projects, and, you know what I mean? Which were buildings and homes erected for people with lower income, right? So that they're not homeless and it can help to relieve the burden. But the question always lies, does it really relieve the burden? Because when you provide that home, think of a home. For all those people who own a home, think of what it takes to maintain that home. The thing about concrete is this, and concrete not taken care of is very ugly, and it don't take long for it to be that way. Right? Now, the conversation went in the direction today as this. If somebody doesn't have the funds to get themselves a home and provide electricity and pay for water and food and all that stuff, and you say, here are the keys to a house, to a home, then what? Do you then have to provide electricity to? Do you then have to provide the water to? Do you then have to provide the food to? Do you then have to maintain that house and make sure it doesn't turn into degradation? Because again, remember, all of the unsightly ghettos that we have in the US and Jamaica and stuff like that, at one point in time, and this is just convo, at one point in time were brand spanking new, beautiful homes that was built and created for the poor. Wall Street, we're Wagwan fam. Wall Street say it not have no meaning. Wall Street say it not have no meaning. Helping the poor, what does it mean? Wall Street, is it anybody's responsibility to assist the poor? And here's what as the conversation was going on today, I was saying to someone, no matter how, we can have great hearts. That's what we call it, right? And good intent and all that stuff. I would consider, I grew up in what would be deemed a middle class upbringing, right? Middle income upbringing. So I honestly don't know. No matter how many friends I feel like I have in dire straits, I'm not living it. So I really don't know what it is to be considered to be the poor. What I will say, and again, especially in Jamaica, very seldom do I see, even if help is given and administered and whatever, very seldom, not saying it doesn't happen, especially the next generation might rise up, but 20 years will go by, 30 years, 30 plus at my age right now. And the folks that we're talking about in that spot are still in that spot. Now, many people will try to come up now with what's the reason, what's the explanation for them to still be in that spot. Could be one of many things, right? People talk about lack of education and stuff like that, right? But at the end of the day, we are not providing education. Mark, there might be now grown folks and you say, okay, well, it's lack of education why they're there. Then how comes when we think about helping the poor, we're not trying to help provide education to alleviate the issue? We're talking about providing homes and providing food and providing this and that. And again, I participate in that too. So it's a beautiful thing. And I implore everybody who's doing it, keep doing it. Just leave the cameras at home. All right. You know, man, leave the cameras at home. All right. Give a sandwich. You ain't got to film it. You ain't got to live stream it. Deplorable. But Wall Street said a road to hell is paved with good intentions. And from a certain perspective, I understand exactly where you're coming from. It's hard for, we're human beings and we subscribe to different things and thinking and theories, right? I don't there are many people who don't care, for lack of a better word, about the poor unless they need them. Politicians, right? The only time the poor means anything to them is if somehow, some way they could gather those votes. But outside of that, and that normally goes for the people who subscribe to those kind of political parties and stuff like that too. And a lot of times as I listen to the conversation, I understand some of it. And that's why the question is, helping the poor, what exactly does it mean? Had a conversation with somebody in Jamaica. Street, very good question. He said, but who is the poor? What are the criteria? A lot of times that is just the people who say they are. People who are below what they call the poverty line. Live in certain neighborhoods. You know, substandard living, you call it. Menial income, if at all any. So there are poor people. We know what poor is. And I mean, we can always get relative and stuff like that with it because words are relative, and we can't say, people say, well, yeah, I'm poor, but I'm rich in this aspect, or rich in love and this and that and that and that. But poor would mean, can you provide food for you or your family to alleviate the hunger? If at all you or your family were in ill health, can you afford medication? Can you afford to seek help? If you have young people, can you afford to educate them? You know? Can you afford to live in what some would deem a decent area? A lot of times if you're checking off the boxes, no, then you may qualify for being poor. But then again, we talk about helping the poor. What does it mean? Because if you come across someone or someones who are deemed poor, how do you help them? Again, my conversation earlier was going toward housing. You know, they were talking about the government housing or whatever the case may be. But if the government builds 100 houses and gives the keys to the poor, what exactly does that do? Yes, they're no longer homeless. But how long before those homes look like a homeless shelter? And it's a question. It's not an insinuation. It's a question. How long? Because again, if you're not able to provide the house for yourself and you don't have the capability of taking care of a house, how long before we have just created what we just deem another garrison, another ghetto? Right? How long? So is that the solution? Is that what helping the poor is? Providing homes for them? You provide the house, they're going to need electricity, right? Where's it going to come from? How does that come about? So how exactly do we help the poor? They're going to need water, right? To be able to survive and for sanitary purposes. But none of that is free. So are you saying, let's provide homes and water and electricity and availability to food and availability to healthcare to those folks? And if that be the case, do they live that life for a lifetime where technically they can kick back and relax and have it given to you because you are deemed poor? Is there what's the fix? What's the fix? Is there a fix? Is that an intention a fix? Cheryl Wagwan. Diane, you see what I'm saying? So again, it goes back to what exactly does it mean to help the poor? And again, we always say the government needs to do more. You know, let me get to some of this right here. The government needs to do more. And the reason why I can't argue with the concept of the government needs to do more is because of who our government is. And again, we're talking a lot about here the diaspora and stuff like that, right? Jamaica and whatnot. Because of who the government is why we can always say, well, they need to do more, because they are notorious for not doing enough. and not putting the resources in the direction that it ought to go, right? The answer, able-bodied people need to find a job. The elderly's total different matter. Who is the elderly? Is the elderly determined by a certain age, or are they determined by age and fragility, right? Because 70-year-old healthy and 70-year-old unhealthy are two different things, right? Take your hand and make fashion, able-bodied people. Yes, you lick the nail on the head. Government need to do more. The concept that the government needs to do more is very, very true. And again, based on the fact that they are notorious for not doing enough. So I can't disagree with anybody who expresses that sentiment. But then I always have to think about what do they do? Because I asked somebody, I said, okay, I'm giving you the keys. You're the government now. You're in charge. What you gonna do? And they're like, well, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. I'm like, and do you think that there's an infinite budget to do this? Because a lot of times people say, the government needs to do this and the government needs to do that. With what resources? Now, are we saying that there are no resources? No. Not saying that. But again, seeking some answers. What exactly does it mean? Helping the poor. Many a people help the poor. Many people buy somebody a meal today. But you bought them breakfast, by lunchtime they're hungry again. So somebody else need to provide that, right? And then at dinner time you're hungry again. Is that the fix? Is that helping the poor? The concept of helping the poor. We go back to the term, give a man a fish, or teach a man to fish. Now, we toss the elderly in there, right? If we say, okay, you know what, the elderly, we'll take care of. How? Here's the thing about life and people, and culturally, sometimes it affects some more than others. You see those elderly people that we're talking about? This is how life normally goes. My dad is in good shape. By insurance wise and stuff like that, would be considered elderly, but a strong, healthy man, right? So the thing is this: I am his child, who he raised and provided for and fed and whatever the case may be. So while he can take care of himself, if ever he gets into the position where he cannot take care of himself, who's supposed to take care of him? The government or me? The government or me? Who is supposed to take care of him? You know who's supposed to take care of him? Me. Me. I'm supposed to take care of him. Right? I'm supposed to take care of him. But again, because a lot of times too, statistically, it shows a lot of the people who are on the lower financial totem pole, a lot of times have the most children. More children, right? You financially, you don't have it to take care of the youth, but you got a lot of them. Does thought go into that before these children come about? You know, enough people tell say, man, children's a blessing. It's a blessing. Jah will provide. Jah mean in the government. Jah mean in the private sector. Jah mean in a charitable organization. Right? Wall Street said, Bob said, I know everybody want a suffer if it's sorry for. We help age and the babies and the handicapped. So here's the thing now. Exactly, the aged. But if that's still a, remember, you know, a 3 street better does help everybody, you know. We have the healthy and strong. We have the babies. We have the people who are of age and healthy and strong. And we have the aged and we have the handicapped, right? Let's just say it's 4 groups right there. So you're saying don't help the healthy and strong, but help the babies, help the elderly, and help the handicapped. are 3 out of 4 groups that you have to help in the street. So while you are coming off and I say, boy, no, and then them thing then, and I saw it for go, whatever the case may be, we're enable a 3 out of the 4 group that you're helping them. So the question then goes into, okay, so let's go in segments, right? The babies, where do the babies come from? Well, we have people who can't provide for the babies having babies. And again, it's just a question, because it's not like you can go and start castrate people and, you know what I'm saying? I run and say, hey, tie up tubes. You know what I mean? You can't, you ain't able to do that, right? So 3 out of 4 groups you're saying we're going to help Wall Street. The babies, why are there poor? Why are there babies that don't have food? Why? When somebody, and I'm going based on the conversation we're having today, when somebody says, oh man, I have my child and we're poor and we don't have food to eat. It's one thing to say, damn, had that baby fell on hard times. But then you had another baby after that, right? During the hard times, right? So the babies, if we set up situations to say we're helping the babies, then that means go ahead and have your babies because somebody going to take care of those babies, is what you're saying. So we move on from the babies now to the aged. Those aged people, where are their children? And again, I'm not saying assistance is one thing, you know. Assistance means like Medicaid and Medicare and stuff like that. And assistance and taking care of are 2 different things. So when we say assistance, so the elderly that we talk about on the street, where are their children that should be taking care of them? The handicap, I understand. But then remember, the handicap is either going to be handicapped babies or handicapped elderlies too. Right? So same situation. If you're handicapped elderly, do you have any children? If you don't, then I understand. Right? Babies, then still somebody had the baby. Right? That middle section, I understand the lack of empathy for them. Wall Street say, hey, I'm sorry for them. You know. But the question lies, why are they poor? Because bear in mind in our street, in certain places, Jamaica being one of them, not everybody that is poor just because they want to be poor, you know. There's a lot of people out there looking around. Of course, you've got people say, turn around and make fashion if I figure it out, but there's a lot of people that those parents invested in and say, you know something, I ain't got it, but I got to figure out how I'm going to send this child to school and get them an education so they can find a way out. And they have a lot of people graduate after the parents done spend all the money, and parents say, thank you, Lord, somehow, somewhere you make me find the money to put them through school, find help here or there or whatever, so they can go out there and take care of themselves with their education. But they go out there and find that though they're educated, the job that they were educating themselves to go get that would help them remedy this situation is not there. Right? So the crazy thing is when we say help the handicapped, the babies, and the elderly, it is wrong to assume that all of the middle ground there, which are the able-bodied, are out there poor just for poor sake. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of people, I know people personally growing up, when you look back right now, they are not doing too much. But the reality of it is that's by choice. You know, that's by choice. That's by choice. Right? So, street, let me see what you say. Babylon, I'll freeze up the thing because, you know what I mean? The age that are obviously struggling in the streets, say, yeah. Streets have a point. So we back to it not have no meaning. Oh, Lord. That's what I'm saying is that what I remember, you know, I'm counting on you, the smart ones. I proudly represent those not in the know. I just have the questions, right? And this is where you come in, street. You should be answering me and let me know what I'm taking back to the populace. What I'm going to take back and say, okay, we found a fix. I spoke to Wall Street and Diane, and they said this is what we're going to do. And we going to do it. Right? There's a lot of enabling that goes along. And the truth of the matter is this. If we want to be practical and honest, as we sit down, and this goes for everything. Any time you decide to create a solution, within the realm of your solution is some people are going to be enabled and be able to skate by and beat the system. That's why sometimes people don't support certain things, because while they know help is going on, there are people who are taking advantage. When you think about a lot of charities, right? Yeah, the money go and people get help. But what most people are not happy with or comfortable with is the fact that of every dollar that I contribute, maybe 30, 40 cents goes to help, if so much, sometimes less. And we want to see it all go when it can all go, because the organization has to be ran, right? So some of that money has to go to running the organization. But as far as we're concerned, if we are giving money to charity, it should be going only to food and only to only. So it's like anytime you try to create a scenario to assist, you have to make way and make concessions and just be prepared for those that will be enabled. Street, what does helping the poor mean? Because a lot of time when people decide to assist the poor, it's straight up empathy. They toss logic aside because they're going to sit down and be logical about it. They're not going to do it. It's just pure empathy. And a lot of times it comes from a specific place, right? You've had an experience. You see the whole concept of the elderly and the handicapped or whatever the case may be. You went somewhere and you had an experience with an elderly person that was so touching to you, and it connected with you so much and so well and so strongly that you have empathy for the elderly from here on. And if something is going down or whatever the case may be, you're going to assist the elderly. You've gone into some situations and you've seen some babies or some young people in some dire straits, and it tugged on your heartstring, and from here on out you have empathy for the babies, and you're going to do what you can do for the babies. Bump everybody else, but for the babies. Right? You've seen some handicapped folks and you've seen them taken advantage of, and you know, and in your heart of heart, you feel like if they weren't handicapped, they would be able to take care of themselves and they would do better, which you don't know for sure. If they're never handicapped, then they're probably out there with the able-bodied people who ain't doing nothing. You don't know. But for whatever reason, your empathy is attached to it, right? So it goes back to saying, it's just straight up your internal, your empathy as to whether you're going to help or not help. Because the truth is, there might not be any real meaning to the concept of helping the poor. Right? Let's say, let's just start talking hypothetics right now. The government creates a department and allocate a certain amount of the budget to assist the poor. There's going to be a process that the poor will have to go through to get that. Will poverty keep them away or keep them back, or will they be able to take advantage of that? And if so, are they going to implement methods now to decide, okay, so who really is poor? What is, like Street say, what's the criteria? What does poor really mean? And is it a permanent thing, or am I helping you to get on your feet and whatever the case may be so that you are no longer poor? Or do we just have to live and breathe with it and say, guess what? It's just different. You know, we got the rich people who, however they got their money, a lot of them inherited it. A lot of them came by foul means. And then we have those who worked for it, but it's their money, right? And they can go live their life. And we got the middle income people who are working hard and doing their thing, and boom, right? And then we have those people down here who are considering themselves the poor folks, but there's provisions made for them. So who said that they need to go work? Nope, ain't got to do that, because there are concessions made for me, right? So again, what exactly does helping the poor really mean? And how do you make that work and make that effective? Again, Once when we can't think of the answer, the easiest thing to say is, well, the government need to do this on that. Right? Now I will say this, and I can't. This part now I'm speaking of here. I'm saying it here, not. I'm not in the working world, in the corporate world in Jamaica. Spent 1 year in there before I left. But I'll tell you this. I used to manage a staff. I used to be a regional manager at a staffing company. And that's when your eyes get open to certain things. I was hiring people, right? Huge company. And I was doing the Southeast. So it's not like I was just dealing with South Florida. I'm talking about the Southeast, which means the entire state of Florida, the entire state of Georgia, and South Carolina. Right? I was employing people. Moved on. And even in my line of work right now, still hire folks and put people to work on whatever the case may be. And you know what I've learned? And some people would say, nah, some people disagree because they're not in the know. There's a majority of people who are unemployed by choice. Right? Are unemployed by choice. It's not because there isn't a job. And nowadays we say it's worse because COVID, and after COVID, a lot of these people didn't want to go back to work for whatever reason because they figured out that they don't have to, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Prior to COVID, my experience in the working world has been this. I've been working since I left high school, since I was 17, 18 years old. Never not been. All right? And I know many of people who have never not been employed. I also know people who have never been employed. Right? But truth be told, I felt a lot of times like I was putting more effort into trying to get somebody a job and keep somebody employed than they were putting into getting a job and staying employed. Right? And I know people who they want to work until the weekend, or they want to work until they feel like taking a break, which means I got to quit this job, or whatever the case may be, right? You also have Milverton, Wagwan, fam. Great to see you. New York City's in the building. Street say it has to be impromptu. You mean the process? How? Because again, if it's impromptu and there's going in for a fix or whatever, it's no different from buying somebody a sandwich, right? So the poor that we're talking about, Wall Street, we're talking about the poor and the home. Somebody doesn't have a home. If you provide a home for somebody, there's an overhead to run that home. What about the overhead? I'm gonna tell you something that happened to me, and believe it, and you'd probably think I'm making this up, but talk to most people who are in that situation, they'll tell you the same thing. I had some rental properties, right? I had some rental properties, and I decided. Somebody said to me, "Why?" And I'm sure I'm not the only person who've heard this. What you want to do is get in with Section 8, right? And I'm like, nah. And they're like, no. Section 8 is not about poor and desolate or whatever. It's just people who have managed and figured how to tap into the resources and whatever. And Section 8 will help them pay it. It's the government's paying for a majority of it. And I'm like, why would I do that? They're like, well, because you don't have to worry about the rent a lot of times. Because that money's coming from the government. They just got to supplement whatever they got to do. So, if you look out and things go the right way, then you have tenants for a long time and you ain't got to worry about it. Money comes from the government, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you know what? Damn, sounds cool. I'm young property owner. And I decided, okay, cool. Got a Section 8 renter in 2 of the properties. I remember it like yesterday. The rent was like $1,400 and change for one property, and the other one was bigger. So let's say it was $1,400 and $2,000, right? And the property that was $1,400, Section 8 was paying $1,250. Let's just make it round arbitrary numbers. And for the $2,000 property, Section 8 was paying like $1,800. 1,700. So all they had to come up with was the 150 over there and the 300 over there. Section 8 pays everything else. Would you believe that there was not a month that they weren't either late with the 150? Now, bear in mind, again, you've got rent of 1,400 and 1,250 is being covered. You've got rent of $2,000 and 1,800, 1,700 being covered. All you got to come up with is just the rest of it. And believe it or not, problems every single solitary month. Right? So we go back to, because that was a scenario of helping out the poor. They were helping out the poor. But in a case like that, it seemed like it's not a helping out. You need to help out. You need to subsidize the poor, like cover everything. Because again, if you provide the housing, you're going to hear them say, well, things tough because I got to pay the electricity, and things tough because you got to pay the water. But unfortunately, it's just what it is. You know, you need that stuff. Got to provide the food. You know what I mean? You got to take care of the thing. You got to make sure that you take care of stuff. Upkeep. Right? So it goes back to, what exactly does it mean, help the poor? What exactly does that mean? And as I have these conversations, I can't honestly say that I've gotten an answer that makes sense when we say help the poor. What does that mean? What does that mean? How do you help the poor? How exactly do you help the poor? What exactly is helping the poor? Because here's an example. Here's a situation that I personally witnessed. Now, a company that I was working for, the staffing company, I try to get corporate to fund certain ventures for my people, my guys. I consider them my guys, right? And there are people who you have the struggle story into this and that and that and that and that, right? And we managed to create a program that would pay for education. So as long as they were working for us, and I was going to keep them employed, of course, pending you're doing what you're supposed to do. And then there would be a program for, we offered 401k, we offered health insurance. They did not want to take advantage of the insurance, but yet, you always hear people saying, I don't have health insurance, or whatever the case may be. You have a job now, you can get health insurance. Of course, it's going to come out your check. But like everything else, you ain't going to notice it. It is what it is. It is what it is. Right? Comes out every week. Not a lot. Comes out. They opted not to take the health insurance. Right? The education part of it was 100% covered. So you do the classes. This is the amount that you're going to get each semester. So take one class, take two classes. It would cover it. I'll tell you this. Nobody that you would have thought, when we have the concept of you're going to help the poor and you want to help people to step up and get up. Nobody took the free money toward education. Nobody took the free money toward education. But of course, when it came to holiday times and stuff like that, you'd always, because sometimes I'll sit down there and I'll have conversation with folks, and you can hear people complaining like, man, it's a holiday time, and, the boss man, which I hate when people call me boss man, give us a little thing. We work hard during the course of the year, but you're going to give us for our holidays and bonus and this and that. And I'm saying to myself, I have something set up over here for you. Free money for education. You don't want it. But you're sitting here asking me about a couple bucks for our Christmas bonus. You want a $100 gift card for our Christmas bonus, but you won't take advantage of $5,000 a semester toward education free. So again, the question is, helping the poor, what exactly does it mean? And again, when it comes to being in dire straits and being in a situation, that can happen overnight. Ill health can take you from rich to poor in a heartbeat. So don't take nothing for granted and look down on people and be like, well, you're supposed to do this or whatever. You do have people out there right now who are poor because of ill health. A bad decision here or there. But then what do you say to those people that said, well, if it was a bad decision here or there, then you know what it is and knew what it took to be where you were before. So you should be able to get back there with a little bit of help. So if you were getting the help of the Section 8s and whatever they're doing and stuff like that, then you should be able to navigate the waters and get back there. People will say that. Again, the question goes back to, what does it mean to help the poor? Ladies and gentlemen, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, just think on these things. All right? It's my time to roll up out of here. Like I said, best time of the year, best month, best season. Tomorrow's My Earth Strong. I'll be on radio tomorrow. Hit me up on social media at MyGCole, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're going to continue this conversation.